A court has heard President Trump offered WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange a pardon if he denied Russia was involved in the leaking of Democratic emails. Mr. Trump allegedly sent a former US Republican Congressman to visit him at the Ecuadorean embassy in August 2017. Now, during the visit, it's alleged he offered Assange an escape if he was willing to play ball. The White House has denied the claim. So more on this now. We're joined by former war correspondent and author and documentary filmmaker Michael Ware, as he always does on a Thursday. Michael, good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us. So on this, the pardon, the potential pardon that may have come from Donald Trump, can you give us a kind of a broader view of what's going on with Trump at the moment? Because this follows yesterday's story. Rod Blagojevich, it's a tough one. He was also given a pardon after basically auctioning off Barack Obama's former Congress seat.
That's absolutely right, Pete. And you know, these new claims about potential pardon for Assange, even though the White House absolutely denies them, would seem to fit within a broader pattern of the way President Trump uses pardons and commutations of prison sentences. Now, yesterday, he caught the entire nation almost on the back foot with 11 reprieves, 7 pardons and 4 commutations of sentences. Now, you got to start to question the nature of the president's process and intent when you look at who's receiving these pardons. By and large, of the 11 reprieves, they're mostly rich, powerful, well-connected white men who were convicted of white-collar crimes. Now, as you say, one of them is the former governor of Illinois, who was caught on tape trying to sell or auction off former President Barack Obama's Senate seat in that state of Illinois. Oddly, not only has the former governor's wife been going on Fox News quite a lot, airing the question of whether he should receive a pardon, but the former governor was also on Donald Trump's Celebrity Apprentice. Then we can look at another 2 characters. One is he pardoned Mark Milton. Now, Mark Milton essentially defined the greed is good era of financial corruption in the 80s. He's the so-called junk bond king. He was pardoned yesterday by President Trump. Oddly, the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, is the prosecutor who prosecuted that junk bond king. But there's another connection to Rudy Giuliani as well. Former New York City police chief, police commissioner, Bernie Kerik. He was convicted of tax fraud. He got a pardon too. Guess what? He used to be Rudy Giuliani's bodyguard and driver. Now, normally, these pardons are considered through submissions to the Department of Justice. I believe there's something like 14,000 submissions that are with the Department of Justice. But the president said he hasn't gone through the Department of Justice, it appears, because the president says he made these decisions based upon recommendations from his friends and business associates. So the idea of President Trump dangling a pardon in front of Julian Assange might be hard to prove, but it doesn't seem out of the ballpark, particularly given that all of this could potentially be a lead-up to the president preparing America for him to pardon his convicted and jailed campaign manager and one of his political go-to men, Roger Stone, who's due to be sentenced tomorrow.
There is that one too, yeah. Tell you what, it's all going.
It's all happening.
Yeah, it is all happening. So, where do you sit? Because I would have thought that the Americans would still want, in a big way, Julian Assange, going back to the Afghan war files. And Michael, you've spent a lot of time in Afghanistan, and Laura and I have spent a bit of time talking about the contents of that Afghan war files. You know, you've got to balance off the fact that he exposed the location and the identities of informants and gave up positions of soldiers, but then he also, or those files also divulged the fact that a lot of civilians had been killed unnecessarily by Allied forces. So where do you sit on all of that?
Well, look,
It's a big question, I know, with a big answer, but
it is.
yeah.
So I'll try and keep it short. Look, after 10 years in combat with American troops and American intelligence, dealing with American intelligence agencies and the national security apparatus, I'm a little bit hawkish on these matters. Look, Julian Assange, first and foremost, is not a journalist.
No.
All right. At best, he's a librarian or archivist. Now, as such, he had a responsibility in. He's not a criminal for leaking that confidential and secure information, but, you know, there's a responsibility on us as, you know, true journalists to be careful about how we release confidential information. And I firmly believe that Julian Assange did not do that, and that I think he was more pursuing a personal agenda in the manner of many of the releases of his secret troves than he was actually pursuing a true agenda of transparency. So I have very little sympathy, personally, for Julian Assange. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you make a very good point, and we've spoken here too, Michael, that he's probably more an activist, or is more an activist than a journalist anyway, and he's paying the price for that.
No way. Yeah, not a journalist.
Michael Ware, as always, great to get your thoughts, and we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us.
Good on you, mate.